Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandeep Menon. I'm the managing director for Fatmong Production. Welcome to Hashtag Breakdown. And today I'm actually totally excited because I'll tell you the reason as we go further. This is the fifth week of Hashtag Breakdown, and I'm quite happy that a lot of people have got back to me with some feedback and they've watched it and they've loved it. And feedback is very important for me to improve at the end of the day. So today we have lots to talk, and the person that we have on today's breakdown is someone really close to me. So he's a director, he's a storyteller, he's a creative director, and he's done some amazing shows. If I tell you the names, obviously you guys will also want to see who's the brain behind it. He's done shows like Coke Studio, MTV Unplugged, Sound Tripping, Fear Factor, Top Model, and many other music shows. And he's shot music videos like Teriya and Swag Mera Desi. And Swag Mera Desi is also one of my favorite songs at that point of time because the word swag came from that. Yeah. So the list goes on. And I'm very happy to have Nishan Naik on the hashtag breakdown, and he will be breaking down some of his works that which is still there in lots of people's memory. I'm sure everybody listens to Coke Studio even now. Uh, so without wasting much time, I also we will be diving it into deep into a multi-camera setup and the direction that goes behind it. So every shoot in a multi-camera is a learning, and I think that's what is most important, right, Nishant? So Nishant, please join us. Hello.
How's it going?
I'm doing good. Good to see you, Nishant, and you're looking young and you're looking smart.
Thank you. You're too kind, yeah.
I'm not
What's
kind.
your
It's the fact. I mean, you're still looking the same. I mean, I think we met last.
it's the
Uh,
lockdown, it's a lockdown glow.
it's a lockdown glow. Yeah, probably. We met last in Northeast, and
Yes,
yeah, and
2014.
2014. Yeah, I mean, myself and Nishant has done a show called Nat Geo Cover Shot, which was a great show. I got to explore, and Nishant also got to explore a lot of Northeast in that, and we actually covered almost the entire Northeast in that. Correct.
We
Uh,
did.
Nishant, before I don't, we have lots to talk, and I have actually boiled down a lot of. It was too difficult for me to choose what to add in this in this small 1 hour session to talk to you about. But then I have put a couple of favorite shows of mine, and which you have done, and like always, music is closest to my heart. And you actually managed to do all the best of the best formats of music. So,
Thank
yeah. Firstly, I want to know: are you a musician?
I am actually. Growing up, I learned the piano.
Okay,
So I think that's something I took to when we were obviously in school and college. It's a big thing to be a part of the
music
band.
band. Yeah.
So I think one kind of aspired for that. Never aspired towards top academics. But I think once college finished and I started working, I kind of gave that up. Although I've still managed to, I've gotten back to it of late. But I was taking it quite seriously till I finished college. Um, yeah,
Lockdown practice is happening basically.
lots. Yeah,
Nice. So, Nishant, how did the entire journey of television multi-camera shoots? Did you always start with multi-camera shoots?
I didn't, Sandeep. In fact, when I was growing up, my teenage years in the 90s, MTV, as you know, was big in India. We used to get a feed that would come from Singapore, and I've always listened to a lot of music as a kid. So for me, it used to be the ultimate thing was to watch MTV Unplugged. So if you remember
Yeah,
Alice in
of course.
Chains
Yeah,
and Nirvana, Pearl Jam,
yeah,
so that used to be the ultimate for me to catch on MTV when it was first the international feed.
yeah,
After which MTV India happened, so there was Cyrus Rocha
yeah.
and this lovely campus show called MTV U. Bakra happened later. So I think by
MTV
the time I
Grind
was
also
finishing college,
happened.
sorry,
MTV Grind also used to happen.
MTV Grind also, yeah. But although I think the international version was a little more
Yeah,
was cooler for us.
yeah,
But I think when I was finishing college, I still hadn't really figured out what I wanted to be doing like most college kids. But I did know that somewhere, I want to be attached to MTV and doing cool stuff like that. So I sought out an internship with them as soon as I finished. And I think I had gone there initially very naively thinking that they do only music videos. They didn't do any music videos. They, in fact, a whole library of music videos, and what they were doing was actually creating original content. So that was my whole initiation into content. I was very happy that the first show I got to work on was MTV Bakra. So I started from the ground up, carrying tapes, searching for color bar. I'm sure all of us have done.
Yeah. Of course. I've also actually started my journey from a music channel, really, which was at that point of time competing in South. It was called SS Music.
SS Music, of course.
Yeah, Southern Spice Music. So my journey of music also ended up through a reality show there, and then it's all started again with the logging and tapes and tape logging and everything.
And searching for color bar.
Yeah, searching for color bar was one of the exercise which I got in the beginning days, and I played this prank with a lot of people. Huh? It's still the industry.
Did you
prank.
fall for it?
I did fall for it. Yeah.
I fell for it as well. Yeah.
I did fall for it, but then I didn't obviously go up to an extent. I didn't go up to the extent of going out and finding for it, but I have made people do that.
I mean, after that, you just get more and more inventive as the years go by.
Yeah, of course. I made somebody go to the Jaipur market and look for color bars. Yeah. So, anyways, Ishan. So first, I really want to start the breakdown with the Coke Studio show, because that's one of my favorite. I listen to Coke Studio almost every day. My friends ask me, "Don't you listen to anything else apart from Coke Studio?" So Coke Studio is something which is, and I started my career in Bombay precisely with Coke Studio season 1. So that again connects me a lot more to this format. And at that point of time, I was an AD, and Babul was the director, and it was a wonderful show for me to start with, because music has always been in my blood, and then I really got the best chance to start my career also with that, with all music around me, and that's the vibe of the show. I mean, that's
yeah.
So I'll just play something. Just obviously everybody knows Coke Studio, but still I'll just play one of the best songs which I like among the songs that you've done in the season 3. Listen to the entire song if you give me time, but it's
all
lovely.
on your website in any case, on YouTube. So
yeah. So how did Coke Studio happen in your life?
Can you kill the screen?
Yeah.
So Sandeep, actually, before we jump into Coke Studio, I think for me, I spent about 5 years before film music content actually happened to me,
Okay.
doing a lot of reality work. Of course, I went to the, I spent a substantial time at MTV initially, working as an AD there, and then I moved on to Channel V. But the content was essentially fun stuff around music. It
Yeah.
really didn't have anything to do with creating music.
Yes, sound tripping. I remember.
And the whole reality thing happened after that. The whole reality with Idol and, a couple of the big formats that slowly came in, Big Boss came in, Roadies was big. So I've actually traveled the whole reality thing for a little while. And then I think the turning point for me that actually made me realize that, oh shit, you're a musician, so go and leverage that skill set and make some good work, was when Duelist happened. You remember Duelist, right?
Yeah, I love that again. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that show and just the sheer guts with which they just told those kind of stories about actual collaboration and building a composition. And there was a market for it because it was up on
Season
Star
one was
World.
fantastic in that. In the sense, season one had the storytelling.
There's a space for aesthetics, and
Yeah.
telling these good stories about the music process, which up until then I thought was just a very nerd, limited audience. So after Duelist, this other show called Sound Tripping happened, which we spoke about
Yeah,
earlier,
of course.
and
It's a lovely.
that kind of just propelled me into thinking about really going for the pushing myself to do good music content. So then
I still remember Tunga Tunga Baje.
yeah. So that was really a phenomenal show for me because I moved from a completely different television world to working with DOPs who had large format camera experience. They were adapting to actually doing a content show. So it was this really interesting amalgamation of ideas, and that actually taught me how, as a director, you really need to collaborate in the truest sense and really leverage people's strengths, because it's not just you there who's filming, who's handling the artist, who's pulling out content, who's editing. You're supported by a very very talented team most times to help you achieve that vision. So that's the kind of fundamental that I then took forward when MTV asked me to come on board and work on first season 2 of Coke Studio, the season after the one that you did, because they wanted to get more focused on Indian original music coming from these film composers and kind of take it forward. So I found that while I did know the theory of everything, and I knew the music lingo, so it made it easier to talk to composers. I just found me take this whole collaborative workflow that I've learned working on a show like Sound Tripping, which was done by people completely outside the TV industry, and try and adapt it to this. So that's how it happened. We focused on essentially setting the right vibe, and I'm glad that I had MTV as a very trusting client then to say, what, let's just be true to the art of music. So it only comes together when
I just want to know, Sound Tripping. You guys did a complete on ground live recording for the entire piece. Like you guys put together the whole music live sounds. I mean, Foley sounds precisely.
So the show was essentially about Sneha Khanwalkar traveling around India and discovering spaces and the sounds from those spaces and sampling those to create a track.
Yeah.
We had no idea we'd actually find most of the songs that we ended up finding, but at the back end you kind of had to go and research the place to know what potential sounds there are, so you can build the soundscape. So we always went there with a little bit of a basic track, and we obviously knew the stories that we wanted to focus on because we done a recce. But
Right.
Most of it was literally created. I'm telling you, Tung Tung, which was done by this phenomenal producer Dub Sharma, who I'm so thankful has finally got his due with Gully Boy and stuff he's been putting out. He actually sat in this hotel room in Ludhiana and sat with Sneha, and they just both of them went into this mad all-nighter, just essentially taking these sounds and processing it into different layers of a track. So that for me was total. It was candy store for me because this is something that I really understood.
Yeah.
So we all the songs happened on site, and of course they were post produced later. But the amazing thing was actually how you kind of take a seed of an idea and then just go and sort of find it as you go along. And that's pretty much what travel reality shows are. Similarly with Cover Shot.
Travel with
You
music
have a
is
format in place,
even
but
better.
then you find it along the way when you're filming. So you've got to
Very
be
true.
open and plan. So.
Very true. So, yeah, designing a show like Coke Studio, I mean, obviously, it involves artists like A.R. Rahman, Amit Trivedi. So, working with these artists, how do you actually get to briefing them, and what is your way of dealing with these artists? Like, do you say what to do, what not to do to them?
See, first of all, the whole concept of Coke Studio was to actually get these guys together and create a track as they would in a rehearsal space or in an actual recording studio. So you're essentially not getting them to play any role. Your job as a director or someone just filming it is to just observe the process, because they are all artists. The music director knows what he needs to pull from each of them.
Yeah.
So your job is essentially to document the process, which is why I think that the whole behind the scenes element of Coke Studio is very important, because that's where the
True.
song is actually born.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I mean, I've done MTV Unplugged and Coke Studio, and when I used to spend time in the behind the scenes part of it, so I used to be there and just listen to what is the entire process of this music getting made. And trust me, I was astonished by the fact that music is getting made in 2 days, 5 tracks, then and there. Over there, they just call all 10, 15 musicians, and then Ranjit Bharat says, "Hey, Sandeep, listen, call Balabhaskar or someone from Kerala. I need him tomorrow." Yeah, call him from he's in Kerala now. Tomorrow is the recording. Now I have to figure out how do I get Balabhaskar, and then Balabhaskar comes in. I mean, he's such a lovely musician. He's no more actually, Balabhaskar. He passed away. But then he comes in and he's standing there with the violin. He has no idea what is he going to play. Ranjit is like, okay, fine, everyone just start the music, and then suddenly he just shows this, and then everyone stops and he says, Bala, take over. And then Bala starts amazing one piece over there. That's how the music is made there. That becomes the addition of the particular song which is already created over there. And it's so lovely to be in that vibe itself. And then the best part is they have the basic structure of the song, and then on the day of the recording, I'm sure you know this, when they start playing, there will be a new addition that comes in between.
Yeah.
So it's a whole vibe, and I love that vibe. I mean,
and that's what. So there's no real brief to actually say, do this and do that, because you have to understand they know exactly what they want to achieve. So your job as a director is to be as least obtrusive as possible and just observe the whole process. And just as you were saying, they'll keep reinventing on the spot.
Yeah.
It's up to you also, and this is again where I feel that being a musician helps a director on a format like this. It's up to you also to improvise, because you've got your set number of cameras. You've obviously done a breakdown beforehand. We'll talk about that in depth a little later. But it's about capturing that vibe and just being there as someone seeing that song come to life. So therefore, you've got to really reset your traditional way of thinking as to how you approach multi-camera coverage, and treat this kind of midway between a film concert and a documentary, because that's the real meat of the content. And I'm really privileged, because these are all heroes I looked up to and listened to. I mean, A.R. Rahman was huge for me, still is, when I was in college and stuff. So it was a real privilege for me to
with him?
Sorry?
Do you remember the first briefing that you had with him? Like on set, like you.
Yeah, so yeah, I do, because I'd actually worked with him on season 2 of Unplugged, which was before this third season of Coke Studio.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, that was my first actual show as a multicam director, where I had like 10 cameras, and I had to figure out how to make it look great and make it all come together, because MTV had really taken a punt, and because I had been the creative director on Coke Studio season 2, the season after you. I told them, look, I really want to direct this and direct multicam, because I feel I can do it. So the biggest challenge was, how do you handle an A.R. Rahman shoot, because he comes with this massive string section, lots of pieces in the puzzle here. But I think for me, of course, again, once we broke down the songs and understood what comes where, it's literally, and this holds true for any superstar that you kind of work with. They're human beings first.
Yeah.
So it's about giving them their space and then approaching them at the right time and saying, this is what I need to achieve, and you tell me how much you'd like to work around it, because here again, this is his domain. This is a music concert that happens to be recorded and you get a live track out of that. So I think that the open communication was really important for me, and just generally, going up to him and making him feel comfortable with the cameras. He asked the most interesting questions because he's extremely well versed with the whole filming process himself.
Yeah.
So I think because I worked with him on season 2 of Unplugged, and that season really is something that gave me a lot more work. This season of Coke Studio was a little easier for me because we kind of understood what we needed to get. The kind of people who'll be playing with him, so you get familiar with the set, all of that. So it was. I didn't really find an issue on season 3. I was just really happy to say, let me push a little bit more. In fact, MTV again very kindly allowed me to do the promo also for that season. So the promo had Rahman kind of emerging from the shadows, and he had like barely an hour to shoot that. But we did it, and I found him to be the most easy person to talk to be honest.
Yeah.
And then that just kind of demystified for me.
Nice. So Nishant, PCR is your home kind of. Usually you spend more time than your flat in PCR. I think because if you're
talking about a multicam PCR.
Multicam PCR. I mean, if you're tied up on a longer format shows like like a 3-month shows, then you end up in PCR for almost 8 to 10 hours inside that. So what is the kind of setup that you guys had for a kind of show like Coke Studio, just for an understanding of people over here? What is the kind of setup that you, and there's a myth that Coke Studio is actually a studio, or probably what is the kind of setup that that goes into a whole space like Coke Studio? That's a massive studio which you shot, and for A.R. Rahman also. So what's that? Can you just gist it in
sure.
few words? Yeah.
So let me start with when I was brought on board to direct that season. It was essentially about deciding what identity to give this space. So my frame of reference had been, I don't know, you've probably seen the Abbey Road sessions.
Yeah.
So I'd seen that and I said, okay, let this be this comfortable space where they all are recorded as an ensemble together, because that lends a completely different kind of energy to the recording.
True.
So we built this set as a comfortable lounge space. We put some couches there. Firstly, I had a great collaborative team of my production designer Parichit. I don't know if you guys have worked together.
Yeah.
And DOP Sudhi. So we've done like most of our music work together.
Yeah.
Sudhir Kaushik and Raghav. So we kind of tuned in as to what we want to achieve, and it always helps where the key technical stakeholders are on the same page when you kind of start off. So we said, let's keep this as a lounge, as a loungy space. The studio, of course, is also then treated by a separate audio consultant who comes in, because everything is recorded, every take. I think the idea is to film them actually doing each take as many times as they need to, and then depending on the final output, obviously as music composers, they'll say, we'll take this part from take 1, we'll take this part from take 4. So you get those notes later on, and then you compile the video with your corresponding video takes. So I think the process then had to be streamlined, and it's something that I learned. I said, it doesn't have to be short. Just because we've taken the guitars in take number 1, it doesn't mean we focus the camera on another instrument for take number 2.
Yeah.
So which is why it became so important to then understand what the structural music breakdown was. So I had a very good associate of mine, Prateek, working with me at that time, who again was fully tuned in into music. Prateek, he was also with us on,
right?
Yeah, on Cover Shot. So
Yeah.
he would break down the songs only musically, so then he could cue me into what was coming in 10 seconds, depending on the kind of counter that you want to keep. So we've already laid out, I think we had about 12 cameras for that season, and we laid it out to ensure we get coverage for each person, aesthetically, placing either foregrounding with another musician. We set a vibe for the whole thing. it was important that even though you knew a guitar was coming up, in take number 1, you shoot that guitar a particular way. And in take number 2, you shoot that guitar, but you find another angle for it. So then, if you've got options to choose from across the edit. And again, these musicians will generally play the same thing because they've decided exactly what phrasing and what they need to play for that part. So for things like this, they don't really improvise. So you know that take after take, they're going to be playing the same thing. So I just felt that that's a kind of workflow that I was happy I discovered for myself, because I never assisted anyone as to become a multicam director. It's something I chanced upon, and I realized, I could do it. So I kind of developed my own workflow for it, and I found it really helped. Yeah, and it helped me through the 2.5 seasons of Coke that I did and the 3 seasons of Unplugged. But essentially, it's about filming that whole recording performance. Unplugged again is the same recording performance, except it's acoustic and there's a live audience there, so that adds a different energy to the musician.
Does it make it hard for you when you actually preview 12 monitors in front of you, and when you shoot an ad film, you just have 2 monitors in front of you, and you have I mean, 2 is obviously your judgment is way better, but when you have 12 in front of you, where do you put your eye? I mean, obviously you switch, and your final output is the one which you mainly look at, but you need to have an eye for what to switch for, right? What to go next. Yeah. So what is that? Do you have a trick or a mantra behind that?
Yeah. There's no trick. Yeah. So when so a show like a music show in general, unless you've got like a limited time before broadcast, you're close to broadcast, you try and then cut it as online as you can. Try and cut it live as you can. So you then rely completely on a vision mixer to punch the right thing. So you then obviously have to really deep dive into the flow of the content to understand, okay, this is coming next. So then you kind of pre-decide a shortlist.
Yeah.
And then you keep a certain number of isolated feeds, ISOs, sometimes about, I would say, 4 of them. So you have at least some safety to cut away to in case, the channel wants to add something.
Add something or minus something.
But with a music format where they're actually recording, it doesn't really help to have an online mix, because in any case, it's going to be created in post.
Yeah.
So we would record all the feeds and then decide what we wanted to use in post, basis the track that came back to us. So to answer your question, for me, it depends. Yeah, like whenever I do music content, I generally, yes, I will broadly know what the music breakdown is. So then the DOP and I have set the cameras in a particular way, the numbering for it.
So it's all set in your mind that.
But I don't like to stick to a template, because again, music is all feel driven here. So you don't really want to, okay, I'll cut to a wide, and after a wide, I'll cut to a profile, and then I'll cut to a low angle trolley, and then have the. Yeah. I think what's important just to make the scale look good is for you to understand that in the song structure, you have your high points. Yeah. So when you have a high point where you have a loud chorus, you have a particular drop happening, you need to know that you want to show scale. So then that's where you will cut to a jib. So you'll mark those points, so when you have to cue your jib guy, or you have to cue your light designer to do some flourish with the moving heads. Beyond that, I honestly just take it on the fly. I know it's not the most conventional way to do it, but that's what kind of works for me. Doing a content-heavy multicam show like MasterChef, that again is kind of, I think, more skewed now towards the isolated feeds, because again, that's story that you create in post. Because
of late, I liked one of the shows which you did, What the Love, for Netflix.
That was completely ENG.
Yeah, that was an ENG setup.
But we didn't do an online cut for that, because it was like how we do a reality show. When we're shooting out, we generally record everything, because again, this is story that you build in post.
Okay. So I'll just play that What the Love for the people, and then we'll talk.
For sure. For that. Yeah.
I think she's very Bollywood inspired. Are you?
Very. And I have Karan Johar to blame for that.
Why?
You have screwed up my idea of romance completely.
How many of you believe in the power of true love? I'm really excited that I'm going to choose a few of you and make you guys ready for love. The first step is to focus on the struggle within them
As much as I'd like to believe words don't affect me, they do.
and identify what is holding them back from finding love.
I think you're gorgeous. And I think your
I'm going to
personality...
cry because Karan Johar thinks I'm gorgeous.
And for this, I have taken help from some of my friends.
How to break the ice. I'll lift you, man.
All right.
There's nothing more attractive than a man that takes the driver's seat.
Are you a virgin?
Surprise.
Karan has given us the responsibility to ensure that these singletons look and feel like the best versions of themselves.
If you want to be in the love game, you gotta look good.
Silver lining is that in this process, I found myself, which is the best thing out of all, I think.
And I think you have started loving yourself.
I think I do love myself.
I want to be of help because I don't want you to say what the, I want you to say what the love.
So when I saw this, and I kept the first question that I wrote for you was, how you as a director, how do you brief a director?
How do you brief a director?
Yeah, because he's obviously. You worked with Rohit Shetty also, on Fear Factor. I was very curious to know. See, because you at the end of the day, you have certain things which you have kept in mind that you want to achieve. Now he's also a director. Maybe for all you know, you might have this feeling that what if he doesn't like that idea and he just scraps it? Well, have you had that thought, or have you just gone with the flow?
No, I think first and foremost, and this only comes with experience. It's important to read the room you step into. When you get onto a project, you need to quickly assess, what character types am I dealing with.
Yeah.
I think over the years I've learned to develop that skill. So by nature, I'm a collaborative guy. I'm not someone who's the loudest voice in the room and says, it's either my way or it's the highway. I know what the expectation of the client is. I know generally what skills each person brings to the table. So it's pretty much like I said earlier. It's about first behaving with them. They're human beings. Right. So it's about going up to them and saying, this is what I need you to do. And thankfully, they've all been extremely professional when I work with them. I'll tell you more in a bit. But with someone like Karan, he came I think the day we were doing the technical, it was the first episode had a lot of movement. So it was literally like shooting multiple scenes because we kind of blocked a particular setup for him to come and interact with people. Firstly, the format is it kind of falls between scripted reality and completely unscripted. It's the makeover format. How these things work. So you kind of obviously cast particular character types and then you build a narrative around them. But anyway, coming back to him, he was amazingly open and completely. I think all he told me was let's just try and not delay things too much, because most people don't like to wait around for too long, and I'm happy that the team that I work with, I tend to work with the same crew, the same bunch of people, show after show, because again I know what kind of product we can achieve. We work really fast, so it's essentially about telling him, look, I need 5 minutes for this, or if you do need 20 minutes, you tell him, look, I need 20 minutes, you can go back to your vanity and come back. It's only about being direct. It's about communicating, saying, look, this is what I need to do, because that guy, he shot a ton of stuff himself. So I'd say directors, especially because they've kind of been in your shoes as well. They know what it is to kind of handle an entire production. Yeah. I've never had any issues there. In fact, with Rohit, I've done 4 seasons with Rohit Shetty on Fear Factor. He's the consummate professional. He literally just say, what do you need me to do? And again, with him, it's about if you need him to add value to how you want to plan an entry. Usually, I have great fun shooting how he enters the scene, because he likes to put on a car, or he likes to come in on a truck. Again, he's got total confidence and faith in you. If at all he has a problem, he'll just come up to you and say, can we add a little bit more scale to it? Like I remember this past season when we were shooting in Bulgaria, there was this one thing just to kind of make the day, because we were losing light. I said, sir, can you just stand there and we'll shoot off your introductory link? he's not used to this, But again, in the nicest way, once he did the job, he came up to me and he said, next time let's just plan a little bit more action, because I think to kind of, it's got to be big. So I think the next day when we shot something, I actually went up to the 5th floor or 6th floor of this abandoned building, and with the drone operator Sachin, we planned this really nice shot of this drone kind of emerging into the space, and it kind of comes up onto a mid close of Rohit Shetty. So it's that. It's about figuring out, what do they like. It's certainly knowing they don't like, and you try and not get into that space.
Repeat it again. Yeah.
I think in all, I've not come across a situation where somebody tries to, take control and do it this way. I've been lucky that way. Yeah.
Nice. So this show was more like a how many camera setup and how, I mean, it's a wonderful set design. Durga had done it, right? Durga Prasad. We had him on the show. Yeah.
So I think when I first got approached by BBC, who was producing it, it was an original format, and I generally get called in to do a lot of format shows, for which is always a template. So you don't kind of get too much from there. So it was interesting because here we had to build the show from the ground up. Firstly, Netflix was choosing to go into hardcore mass reality for their first unscripted show. They'd chosen a great host. They'd chosen a great cross-section of people to cast as well. So it was really, for me, the challenge was, okay, how do we build this world? How do we build this world to ensure that we get so many setups crunched into the 6 days that Karan Johar was available? How do we shoot parts when he's not required? So we kind of sit and plan the whole schedule. Then you break down the sequences you need to shoot in an episode. Again, it always helps to have a very, very efficient, for a show like this, a very efficient flow management team, because they are your ADs, they are your film ADs in the television space. So when you've got to shoot this setup in this particular room and then quickly move to that. So they are the guys on the floor who will ensure that the traffic moves smoothly so you can make your time. Because as a director on these shows, aside from pulling out the content, and you also work very closely with the creative director on the show, because they are the people who've actually written down the whole plot, so to speak. This is what we need to kind of follow. They have to, they're responsible for that to the broadcaster as well. My job is to just make sure that everything is filmed as per the script. If we have a little extra so that the editor has enough to play with, great. If not, we have to make the day. So it's important to then design, for me, design the space accordingly. So, you don't have to keep the PCR, for example, too far away. So then you've got to, maneuver a lot of cable. You've got to, if you've got cameras on this side, where do you pull your backline to come back into the PCR? So for me, the real challenge is to get onto an empty floor and sit with the production designer, sit with the DOP and say, okay, fine, come, let's imagine this and now build it as per a client specification. So that for me was a great
I always wanted to know, how important is it for a director to be having the technical knowledge, ideally? I mean, or rather the editorial knowledge plus the technical knowledge.
Well, in the television sense, I think it's important. Honestly, it's up to you. I think when I did sound tripping, I really got involved into cameras and lensing, and I took an interest in that because I had such a wonderful team of DOPs to work with. So they actually took the trouble to explain, what a 24-70 gives you, what 3mm gives you, what a 70-200. I had no clue at that time because we came from a Z7 and a PD-150.
Correct.
So this was completely new to me. And after that, I made it my job to understand the process of shooting. I'm not the best at lighting. I leave that to a DOP. And of course, how you finish it. Finishing is not just to edit, but how do you grade the show? So for this particular project, because it was Netflix and it was 4K, we did a proper DI process. So therefore, it was important for Sudhir, the DOP, to sit with Durga and say, you know what, I need the light palettes to be on the color palettes on the wall to be a certain way, so that when I end up building the look on post on DI, nothing should kind of jump out too much. So I find that really interesting, to technically understand. Like I get into details like, what is the finish, what is that material going to be in the background, Durga? And I'm sure Durga's fed up of hearing that we've done 2 shows together. But I will always badger the production designers I work with, and I'm thankful.
He's wonderful. Yeah, I love his sense of.
Yeah, because see, they kind of know, and see, Durga in particular works a lot with film, so they know what a particular wall, the finish of a wall, how it will translate with film lenses versus our broadcast camera lenses. So for me, it's important to say, okay, fine, this has to look a certain way, even though it's going to be in the depth, and then the DOP will have a point of view and say, okay, fine, in that case, let's wash it this way. Especially with coming back to music shows.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question, I think it's important. It helps. Plus, I also produce my own content. You know, there's times where I pick up a show, so it's important to understand the costs for it.
Yeah.
So it's helped me, man. I'm really,
nice.
And not to the point that I'm always second guessing the collaborator I'm working with. I don't think anyone will have that complaint, but it's just something that I need to know because I love visuals. I would like to know how this particular look is achieved. And I'm again thankful that these guys are so responsive when they tell me, okay, this is what a Rec 709 LUT is.
Yeah.
This is what you do with the curve. So it's just an interest for me.
So next, I'm just going to play. I loved one comedy show which you have, the stand-up comedy show which you have done, which is the Amit Tandon show.
हम हर जगह हैं, कोई कंट्री नाम ले लो, हम बैठे हैं वहाँ पे. लाइक यू वोंट बिलीव, लाइक मेरे को घाना से एक बार कॉल आया, लाइक घाना में शो करोगे. लाइक घाना में कितने इंडियन होंगे? घाना में दिल्ली पब्लिक स्कूल में परफॉर्म करके आऊँ मैं.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage अमित टंडन.
मेरे घर का नाम राजू है. नॉर्थ इंडिया में नॉर्मली आधे छोटे भाई राजू होते हैं. लाइक माई ब्रदर ही लव्स टू वॉच क्रिकेट. मैं डैडी के पास जाता था, डैडी न्यूज़ का टाइम हो गया. I'll give you an example. दिल्ली में हमारे दिल्ली में दिल्ली वाले हो गए इवॉल्व. You heard about Delhi pollution? Everybody was concerned except for Delhi people. लड़ाई होनी भी चाहिए, once in a while होती रहनी चाहिए, काफी अच्छी होती घर के लिए. बच्चे भी डरे डरे सब कुछ कर रहे हैं कि ये कभी भी फट पड़ेंगे, अपना आराम से काम करते रहो. मेरे बच्चे ना मेरी तरफ आंख उठा के नहीं देखते क्योंकि सारा दिन फोन में घुसे हुए हैं. मैंने इंस्टाग्राम सिर्फ इसलिए ज्वाइन करा उनको बाप की शक्ल याद रहे.
Did you watch this?
Yeah, damn cool this guy is.
He's damn funny.
Yeah. So
it's very endearing content more than anything.
So stand-up comedy. It all boils down to, again, it's a multicam setup. I wanted to know, do they actually rehearse for a stand-up comedy, or how does it happen? Do they do the set twice, or what happens in the tech and what happens on a shoot?
So for this particular show, since it was with a live audience and it was essentially whatever you catch live. So I had Amit set because this is a set that he built over a couple of months. So I'd gone through the script of it. As per that, I decided what the coverage was going to be with the DOP. I think we ended up using and this we shot on heliums, I think, on red cameras, because again Netflix wants they want only 4K. So it was again a good experience because here we were shooting multicam, but we were using film cameras for it.
Wow!
So
how many heliums?
We used 6 of them. I think we used 4 heliums and 2 monsters. Sudhir would know better. This happened in July last year. But so for me here, it was about it's a single guy on stage. You want to kind of punctuate. You want to get movement. You want to have breathes. You want to have the scale of an audience. All of that. So we used about 3 moving cameras, 3 dollies, and we had this one camera which was on a. We worked with Manish before. He's got this unmanned rig, this trolley which he kind of.
Yeah.
So it's literally just the camera moving. So so I went through the entire plot with Sudhir first. He had his ideas. Harsha designed a great set for this, and once our client, who was Namit at Big Synergy, kind of bought into it, and Netflix was also convinced. We ran Amit through the whole thing. He was absolutely cool. I think this was the first. He'd done a Netflix special before, but this was his first solo special. So there was an understandable anxiety before that. So he came in on a day, he got a feel of the space. We literally just told him, you tell us where you're going to move, and he doesn't move a lot. And again, because it's only one person, you don't run through the whole set because it's just going to tire him.
Yeah.
So we just let him get a sense of the stage, get a sense of the space the day before. We were just we had rigged our cameras, the lighting was being fine-tuned. He just wanted to get a sense of the whole thing, and we said, if you want to ad-lib anything, most comedians will just stick to the script that they've planned because they're fairly disciplined that way. He did that, yeah. So I think because it was a ticketed event, the ticketing partner ran 2 shows. So we shot 2 shows back to back. And Amit, he tells me he hasn't done too much of television, but he was literally so specific on things like continuity. I remember there was this one thing where he cracked a particular joke and he picked up his water, same hand at that same point, and drank it. So in case we had to cut between each of the sets, we actually had that cut point without really ruining the joke or filling it up with an audience shot. We also had 2 smaller cameras, 2 A7S3s on the audience for those cutaways. But we don't really need to do a tech for what's going to for show flow, because it's one guy, and it's about capturing him. It's about knowing again, what to cut to for impact later. So this, in that sense, wasn't an online shoot. It was 6 isolated feeds being recorded, and in post we decided to play around with it. So also with the stand-up comics, a lot of it it's driven by them. So they will say, what, this is the vibe we're looking for. So your job then as a director is to just help them get into that comfort space and add more value to it, to ensure it's not diluting their content, because you can't make it too pretty. I remember we had this gorgeous set where we framed the stage with these Edison bulbs, and we had this unmanned moving there, and I put it in a lot because we loved the shot. And he said, that's taking away from the content. So that's why you need the creator to come and sit with you and say, what, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. So it was fabulous, and I really hope he gets to do more seasons and more shows on Netflix and wherever else, because his content, I mean, if you've grown up in the 80s and 90s, it's just so relatable.
Correct.
It's great stuff. And again, the first Hindi comic to hit Netflix. So it's quite something.
So Nishant, so multicam. If I dwell into it, actually we can keep talking about it.
We'll just end up boring people. Let's not dive into it too much.
Yeah, but I'm very curious to know now, how do you switch from a multicam to ad film? I mean, I saw a couple of ad films which you had done. I'll play one of them, and then let's start talking about it. I'm playing. I like the one which you done with SRK and Kangana. So
this is the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just play that. I'll play it together, and then we'll start talking about it.
What if I told you I've never worked a day in my life? Sounds odd, doesn't it? Well, that's the thing about passion. It makes work not feel like work. It wakes you up before the alarm rings. It doesn't give your Monday the blues. It makes long hours seem like a fleeting moment. It makes you give every role, big or small, all that you've got. Passion is the only thing that's kept me going. So today, even after 26 long years, I can say, this is what living a dream feels like.
Shah Rukh Khan, only on Signature Masterclass.
My mark, my signature.
When you're chasing your dreams, you don't need favors. You don't need to be privileged. You don't need a godfather. You don't need a famous name after yours. You don't need the comfort of home. You don't need anybody's approval. You don't need a guarantee. You don't need a backup plan. You don't even need luck. Because when it comes to chasing your dreams, there's only one thing that you need: passion. I followed my passion. I made my mark.
Kangana Ranaut, only on Signature Masterclass.
My mark, my signature.
Nice. two of the biggest people, Nishant. How did this happen?
So actually, for this particular project, I was so Fountainhead was the experiential agency for Diageo at that time, and they do something called the Signature Masterclass, which is a live session. So they've done the first season, and they were doing the second season. I also do the Mahindra Blues Festival with them every February.
Yeah.
So they called me in for this to essentially look after the live session, which was again a multicam thing. But before that, they also had this small deliverable of making these promos for it. So obviously, if somebody tells you, I'm giving you SRK for like a couple of hours and Kangana for a couple of hours, you will like really want to juice it. So I'm so thankful to all the stakeholders on the project. There was I think DDB was doing the creative for this. There was an agency. The agency guy had written the script. There was a line producer to take care of the production of it. I worked with some of the advertising crew that I generally do single cam work with. Mithun, I don't know if you work with Mithun Gangopai. So we said, let's just squeeze the opportunity. Of course, it wasn't a massive celebrity budget because I think how much these cost. We just knew that we had to shoot this in X amount of time, and we had the presidential suite at the Taj for SRK's film, and for Kangana, which happened a couple of weeks later, we had to build a set. But
how was it briefing Shah Rukh Khan?
I don't think it's very different for me because I still have a process to it. Whether it's multicam, you're setting an identity for the content, right? You're saying, okay, fine, this is the world I want to communicate in camera and in edit, and therefore onto your screen. I think what happens with single cam work, especially if it's an ad or if it's a piece of branded content, is as a director, you are singled out a little bit more in terms of responsibility. Because it's your job to first, you're sent a script, you've got to build a treatment for it, you've got to write a note, you've got to sit with your line producer and cost it according to the ambition of vision that you have. You've got to sell that PPM deck to the client, to the agency, everyone.
That's a whole game. That's an email game. That's
something which we don't really do. We don't really do on TV. You're as part of a larger team. So that's a challenge, and it's also for this. It's about also bringing out the performance from your actor. At the end of the day, SRK is acting for you. He's playing a part for you. In fact, he asked me the first time I met him. He introduced himself, and I was trying not to fan it. And he said, "What would you like me to do?" And that's like a massive, tough question when he's sitting in front of you. And then you go through the script and you say, "Okay, this is it, but let's try a couple of ways." I didn't really want to stick to something that was really, typically how you've seen him in films. And I asked him that. I said, would you mind just making it a little bit more personal? I actually said, when you came here from Delhi the first time, can you get back into that zone? Because I'm not looking for a superstar saying this for the initial part of the film. You're there.
Yeah.
That's already the payoff. It's you talking, going back to that old self and talking about it. And he just got it. Yeah, he did a couple of runs, because there were just these lines. There was no real treatment for this. He gave it a couple of runs, and he's such a smart performer. And that's why he's SRK. He also gave me a couple of these over-the-top takes.
Nice.
He just gave me at that point in time.
Such
and
a
he
humble
said,
person to talk to, be with.
He's a consummate professional. Yeah, I'd heard lots of great stories.
My
about
first
how
paycheck was signed by SRK. Yeah, my Red Chili's paycheck.
Interesting. When you think about single cam work, it's about actually picking up those moments and actually saying, I've got what I need. Thank you. Let's move on. Whereas, you've got to be a lot more precise and detailed at that moment because they're with you only for that finite number of hours. Kangana, it was a very elaborate script actually. On the day she said, I'm feeling really unwell. Instead of the 4 hours, can we knock it off as soon as possible? And when a celebrity, when a big star tells you that you've got to be really efficient. So again, I was blessed with a really good line production team who worked a lot with these celebrities. So they said, okay, fine, we'll rehearse the whole thing. So obviously we've gone in, we've P-Light the day before. We actually rehearsed with a stand-in. So all she had to do when she came in was, okay, fine, this is your block. This is what you got to say. So again, for someone who's unwell on the day, it just makes life a lot easier for that person.
Yeah.
She started the morning, she went through the script with me. She asked me the right question. She said, why do I have to say it like this? Can we be a little bit more flexible? And again, very justified. She's someone who's gone through it, who's internalized the script. And ultimately, I feel with most of these guys that I've had the privilege of working, they give it their best when you say, action, let's go for a take.
Yeah.
I think somewhere within there's still that professional actor who's doing the job and who's...
So they're also more concerned about their image coming on camera. At the end of the day, they know that the same fans who are watching them on big screen is going to be watching this as well.
Yeah.
They have to pay that justice, whatever it is, be it in 30-second or 2 hours,
So she, again, this was, I think we ended up shooting the film in 90 minutes and she was really happy. And then when she came back for the dubbing and I showed her the film, she was really thrilled because she said it wasn't expected. So that was quite a compliment.
Time for dubbing as well. Nice.
Yeah, she came for dubbing because she told me, she said, I'm really sorry, my voice is also a little off today. You let me know when you guys have an approval on the cut and when you're doing your dubbing, I'll come. She landed up on the day. She did a couple of passes. So I really appreciate the level of detail that these guys have, regardless of the size of their image and how they're portrayed. At the end of the day, they all want to just give it their best. So I've been lucky. I've got no complaints.
Cool. So Nishant, we're actually running short of time. So quickly, I have one work which I wanted to ask you some questions about. So I'm going to quickly play that, which is the Sab Rab De Bande. It's one of the lovely it's a lovely video which is shot, and I wanted to know some things with respect to your experience and that.
एक नूर ते सब जग उपजया एक नूर ते सब जग उपजया कौन भले को मंदे कौन भले को मंदे रब दे बंदे सब 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 रब दे बंदे
ये पत्तियां कोई जात ना देखे रंग ना बदले धर्म को लेके इससे कुछ तो सीखे ना कोई राइट ना कोई रॉन्ग बस इंसानियत अपनी कौम यो तो सिर्फ तेजस टॉम
So I wanted to ask you, how was it to work with transgender community? That's my first question, because it's not a very usual thing which every director does on a day-to-day basis, because they're called for a particular content or for a particular shot. How was your experience working with them, and obviously working after that with Sonu Nigam?
So it continues to be a very special project for me because I think Yash Raj, who had produced the entire campaign, they got in touch with me because they had the music firstly, and I'd worked with them in the past. They had these tracks that were ready. The music is composed by Mr. Shamir Tandon. So he'd actually kind of put this band together for a larger brand mandate with Unilever and for their brand Red Label. So they put this whole band together, and I think that they did a phenomenal job of casting this band, because he actually took the trouble of recording their voices, figuring out how to use them. I was not part of that process. It was only when these songs were ready that the production company called me in and they said, you know what, we want to make these videos. the first video from this campaign was a take on Pharrell Williams' Happy. And then there were these two versions of the Sonu Nigam song. One was an acoustic and one was slightly more electric. The challenge for me, and again, why I appreciated the campaign and why it's a memory for me is I actually had to write the concepts down. You know, so they actually said, you know what, write an idea, write a treatment. Went through several iterations. You know, obviously you think about the song first, you think about the message, you obviously keep the brand guidelines in mind, and then you put this together. But I think my biggest apprehension was ultimately how do you work with these people, because these people who actually got very hard and sad stories. They're a community that I know I was afraid of when I was a kid. And when I sat and I met them, they've got an interesting mix. You know, one of them has been working. You know, she spoke a considerable amount of English. The rest of them just, you know, they said, you know what, you tell us what to do. So all that aggression that you generally imagine a member of the transgender community to kind of come with, that was completely left behind. It was literally, you know what, we want to do a good job. This is kind of giving us an identity. The fact that we're being filmed for this campaign, the fact that we are with Sonu Nigam ji, all of that, they like took massive pride in it. So they gave it their all. I mean, Happy actually had a lot of choreography in the video, which they just belted out. So I realized by the end of the campaign, I had gotten rid of a lot of my preconceived notions from the past, you know, just kind of working with them. I was so thrilled to see that, you know, a couple of months ago, somebody did a Royal Stag campaign and 3 of these girls are in that as well. You know? So they obviously had a life after that.
Very nice.
But it's something that I felt proud to be associated with, because it is actually a very, if you think of it from an idea point of view, it's actually a really original idea to get these 6 members of the community to actually sing, to not really play around with their voices. And obviously, I did 3 videos. There were 3 more. I think after the 3rd video, they started getting, you know, actors from the film industry involved. Hrithik Roshan did one. I think Tiger Shroff did another. So it just goes on to show how this thing picked up from these 3 videos when, you know, this noise was generated and, you know, it received a lot of positive feedback. In fact, it even won at Cannes that year. The agency Mindshare picked up a Grand Prix for the entire campaign. So for me, it was just a proud moment to be working with, collaborating with people that, you know, I enjoyed working with, right from my DOP to my art team. Nishant, who was the choreographer on this, and took a lot of trouble, you know, ensuring that they get the right moves and nobody losing their shit in the process, you know, because it can be very, you know, you're working with the community you've never really engaged with before.
Correct.
You know, it was like working with, you know, first-time actors. Yeah. And, you know, with all the general, because we shot this in Kotachiwadi in Girgaon.
Yeah,
we had a lot of stairs for people
place.
to see, all of that. But they just held their head. They've got a lot of pride. They've got a lot of self-respect. They just held their head high. We had some great actors who were a part of this video as well. To me, I'm just so glad it all just came together well here, you know. And,
very nice. And wonderful video, wonderfully shot. I mean, I loved the whole idea, and which is why I wanted to somehow play this and ask you this question, you know, about this. So, Nishant, last question of wrapping up today. In a music video or in a music content, completely, how do you actually decide the seed of the thought? I mean, do you dwell into the music? Of course, that you being a musician, that's something mandatory. You have to dwell into it. But is it the music? Is it the actor? Is it the budget? Or is it the you know, the entire setup which matters to you? Shot taking that matters to you. What is it that gives you that first thought? Do you go all over and then boil it down? How is it?
So very often, you know, obviously I need to kind of identify with the song. Something has to come to me when I hear it like 4 or 5 times. Now, whether it's a particular mnemonic in the music structure that stands out, whether it's a particular line, whether it's the artist. You know, there are points where I also sit with the artist and say, you tell me what you had in mind when you wrote the song. You know, that's always a fair starting point. Often, like Raftaar, I didn't get to meet him until the day of shoot. So I really couldn't ask him that question. It's actually, when you hear the song, you some kind of visual start popping up in your head. It invariably happens, and it's not as if you got to kind of go into another kind of world. You just close your eyes, even with Teria, the Coke Studio music video I did with Amit Trivedi.
Yeah.
It's here, you pick up on something, whether it's a particular line or you can also have you can have a story at the back of your head. Sometimes it's also a retrofit. You hear the music and you say, okay, I had this idea like many years ago. Let me explore it further. So it's about taking anything in the song that kind of jumps out at you. For me, for Raftaar, it was literally, it was the brief from MTV saying, let's make this like really cool and hip, and we have one day to shoot. So
nice.
it look very slick and
That's too
stylish.
much for one day.
Sorry?
That's a lot for one day.
No, we eventually ended up shooting over one day. That's another story. But they wanted it to have, they wanted to have dancers, all of that. So we packed in a lot, and over time I've learned to also minimize from the idea, because you've also got to, and that comes back to your next point. After you've decided on your idea, I think today I've learned that, you actually need to evaluate, okay, how much money do you have to make this? You can't have a $1 million idea and finally realize you've got like nothing to do.
Correct.
I think the best way to, I've learned this of late, to collaborate with the right people, want to do it for the right reason. So if you have a really clear idea, you first talk to people who will really add value to it and say, what, it's not a great budget, but let's try and do this. And invariably you'll find like-minded people will come on board and say, chalo, let's push the envelope and get this done. So I think initially it starts with listening to the song a couple of times. Generally something pops out at me and then I start building on that idea. But eventually it's about, keeping the artist or the client in sync, letting them buy into it, because ultimately it's their song. And then figuring out, okay, fine, what's the actual math around this? How much money do we have to make this? Yeah, that's about it. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule. The important thing is to just be flexible and adaptable in general. So you're able to work your way around whatever barriers that may come your way.
Cool. So Nishant, thank you so much for giving your time. And it was, because we've this is the first time we are talking like this, so formal, and we're talking technical stuff and we're talking all complete work related things. But it's fun to talk to you after a long time, and it was fun working with you also, because we've had a really great time in Northeast together.
Let it not be 6 years.
Yeah, let it not be again another 6 years more. I hopefully after the lockdown is done, probably we should get together and work again. Anyways, thank you so much, and you stay safe and keep smiling and have a great day ahead.
You too, and keep doing this, because this is a great help for a lot of people to just understand what happens behind the scenes. I think it's a great effort, and I wish you the best with it.
Thank you, Nishant. Take care.
Bye, Sandeep. Take care.
Bye-bye.